In this lesson, you'll learn some built-in tools that will help you get around in Bash. These tools are small, but they help a lot. They seem like they should be built into any shell, but they aren't in all shells, which is one of the reasons we use Bash. Whether you're managing hundreds of Linux servers or just your own web server for your blog, these commands will be very helpful. The first is command history. So if we are in root and we type ls-alh, or as we learned in a previous lesson, ll-h, we see a bunch of directories. And very often when you're working in Ubuntu, you may want to go back to a previous command and run it again. So we'll cd to home. And then if we hit up arrow once, we see our last command. If we hit the up arrow twice, we see ll-h, so we can run that command in our new directory. Also, you can scroll back quite a ways, and then you can hit the down arrow to go down in history. Eventually, you get all the way back to where you started, which is a blank line. So if I want to clear the screen, I can just hit up arrow a few times, hit enter, and clear the screen. Another very useful feature is tab completion. So if I want to cat a file in my home directory, but I'm not sure what files are in my home directory and I just want to have a quick look, I can hit tab twice and it'll show me every file in there. If I want to cat one of the files that starts with the name file, I can type cat and then type F and tab, and it'll show me that there are several things that start with file. And if I hit tab again, tab twice, it'll show me all the files that start with the word file. Of course, that's an empty file, so it's not going to show us anything. So we'll cat var log, and we know we're looking for the auth log. But you heard that bonk sound? That means that there's more than one file that starts with auth.log. So if we hit tab twice, it'll show us those files. Now if we just hit enter here, it'll show us the first one. It won't right now because I don't have sudo in front, but you type sudo. And then we see the entries in that auth.log file. If we wanted to look at the other one, we could just type a dot at the end because we know the other one is .1 and hit tab and it'll autocomplete that one. We see that one has a lot more entries in it. The second file, the .1 file, was made due to log rotate. It periodically rotates your log files, letting you have a history of older files and start with clean new files. One more useful built-in feature is changing directory upwards using cd ... or ... So if I type cd space ... I go up one directory. We'll get back into log. I type cd space ... I go all the way back up to root. So we do an ls-al on root. You can see at the very top, there's a period. This period, or dot, represents our present directory, where we are. The ... represents the parent directory. So if we type cd space ... it automatically takes us back up to the parent directory. You can string a bunch of those together. We'll go cd var log apt. Now if we cd with three of those together, we'll go all the way back up to root. cd // and we're back at root. So that can save you a bit of time in trying to type out the directory you want to move up to if you just want to move back up to a higher directory. So please navigate around and practice your new tools. On to the next lesson. In this lesson, we'll talk about absolute versus relative path. You may have heard a little bit about this in other lessons, but some student feedback has led me to believe it deserves its own lesson. A relative path is the path relative, of course, to where you are now. You specify a relative path by not preceding the file or directory you're interested in with a leading slash, or by putting a // in front of the file name or directory. The absolute path is the full path to a file or folder from the root. So the absolute path starts with a leading slash, but no dot in front of it, no period in front of it. Let's look at some examples. So here you can see we're starting out in var log. If we want to quickly get to our home directory, we just type cd with nothing after it. Then print working directory, or pwd, shows us that we're in our home directory. Now if we want to look at what's in the var directory, the root var directory, we type ls var, we get an error. It says can't access var, no such file or directory. Well, what's going on? We get similar result if we type ls./var. This is because we're looking for the relative path, and we have no var folder. In fact, we have no folders at all in our home directory. So let's try ls/var. The first slash here indicates the root of the file system. Oh, we get some results. So let's make a directory called var in our home folder. Now you can see there's a var directory here and a var directory at the root of the file system. And the way we differentiate between the two is by specifying the absolute path to the folder we're interested in. So if we don't want to look at what's in the root var directory, but we want to look at what's in our home directory, we would type ls/home/theo/var. And the return is empty because we don't have anything in there yet. So we just add something real quick. And we look again. And now we have this file.txt in our home theo var directory. And we see this is different from the var directory in root. So this is important to understand, of course, when you're navigating the file system, but it's also very important when you're writing scripts. Let's say we have a super simple script called ls script. We set it executable, and we run it from our home directory. So we can see that the file looks in .var from wherever we are, and then it also looks in home theo var, which may be what we want it to do. Now let's copy that script to the OPT directory. Now we try and run it from here. The first time, we'll look at the content again. The first time it runs the command, we're not in our home directory anymore, so this path doesn't make sense anymore. The relative path won't work here. The full path does work. So when you're writing scripts, be very careful with the paths of the things you're looking for or invoking or doing operations on. If you want to be sure you're working with the right file or directory, make sure you put yourself in the directory you want to be in first, or you work with the absolute path. So now you understand that a relative path is the path that is relative to your present working directory, and the absolute path is the full path from the root of the file system. Good job, and see you in the next lesson. One of the things you'll have to do on your Linux server is manage users. In this lesson, we're going to look at UserAdd and how to use it to add users. UserAdd is a command that will work across Linux and BSD versions, so it's more universal than add user, which we'll look at in the next lesson. So when you're using UserAdd, there are a few options we'll often want to use. One is the -d or home directory. You'll almost always want the user to have a home directory, and that will almost always be /home/username. And the other one we'll want to use is -m. Once we get down there, which means create the home directory. So you don't have to go manually create the directory before you run the command. So let's see what the command would look like to actually add a user. You type UserAdd -d /home/dtrump -m dtrump. Oh, what did we do? Forgot to add sudo. So it's a little confusing here because I'm using sudo. It's prompting me for my password right now. When we use the add user command, it'll prompt for the password during user account setup. So I put in my password and the command took. So let's see what it looks like. We'll look at, oops. Now we see a new directory in there, dtrump. But dtrump can't do anything yet because he doesn't have his password set. So we're going to have to set his password for him. The command we use to do that is passwd. So you notice it didn't show anything on the screen while I was typing the password. That's normal. It's to protect you from someone shoulder surfing and seeing how many characters your password is. That could greatly help them in trying to crack your password. So it says the password was updated successfully. So we would then give the password to dtrump, and he could log in and change his password right after he logs in. So that's what you have to do to set up a user account using the UserAdd command. The next one we'll look at is how to do it with add user. Add user is an additional script. It's a Perl script that actually calls UserAdd as it runs. So UserAdd is actually a binary file. So if we try to look at UserAdd, Watch what happens when you try to look at a binary file with a text reader. Oh, can't see anything there. So for a binary file, you'd have to actually download. You'd actually download the source. And if you want to do anything, you'd have to edit it and then recompile it. So a binary isn't designed to be read with a text editor. This is what the clear text source code looks like. But when you run it through a compiler, it puts it all in binary format for the computer to read. So as we'll see in the next lesson, add user is not a binary file, it's a Perl script that makes adding users a bit easier.